Hello, hello. Today is our last day of the stitch-along. Unless you're behind like me, that's okay. I'm going to take another day to finish everything up. But I'm going to show you the final step. So if you're caught up on everything, you've stitched your black print letters in back stitch, and you might have chosen to whip the back stitch. You've stitched the word snow and forever in white using split stitch or back split stitch, and you've finished your greenery on both sides using a stem stitch for the stems in the middle, and then a fishbone or herringbone stitch to make the leaves. Okay. Just wanted to show this herringbone stitch or fishbone stitch that I did here. You can see that line I was talking about in yesterday's video a lot more distinctly than you can on the one that I made during the video. So just wanted to take a second and showcase that so you could actually see what I was talking about, because it's not very defined in this one, but most of the time that I use that stitch, I get that nice line down the middle. Okay. So today we're going to be stitching the Edelweiss at the bottom, and I'm going to be using satin stitch for all the parts, the middle, the petals, and then the stems and leaves. So I'm not going to stitch the whole thing on video. I feel like I'll be here forever. I don't know if that'll be super interesting to watch, just me stitching for ages. Yeah, but satin stitch, if you haven't done it before, there's a few tricks that you're going to want to use to make sure you get it nice and smooth. If you're new to embroidering, satin stitch can be really tricky. I've been stitching for 2.5 years and it's still tricky for me sometimes. But one thing that helps is, even though I'm going to use 2 strands of thread to stitch, I'm going to separate them one by one, which you've seen me do before. But with satin stitch, this really helps it look a lot more smooth. And I'm just going to put those back together and straighten them out. Pull my needle out here. Thread the needle. Hopefully. I feel like I can thread a needle no problem when I'm not under pressure, but every time I'm on video, I struggle with it. Okay, so once you have your needle threaded, I'm just going to tie my knot in the other end. There. Okay, so when you do satin stitch, it looks like a lot of straight stitches in a row going up and down. What a lot of people are tempted to do when they do a satin stitch is try to like save thread, and that doesn't look very good. So I'm coming up through the top of this circle, this middle part here, and I'm going to go make my thread, sorry for shaking it around, straight there. Okay. And I'm going to put my needle down at the bottom of that circle, and I like to go right in between the 2 strands of thread. When I pull it all the way through, that little gap will disappear. See that? Now, what I've noticed, and what I used to do when I first started, was that I thought, oh, it seems silly to go back to the top and come back down when my needle's right here at the bottom. I can save thread by just coming up again at the bottom, but that will give your satin stitch less of a shine, less of like a straight clean look. So you're always going to want to come back up through your thread on the same side, that's the top here, okay, and go back down through the same part, the bottom. So I'm going to make that straight there, go back down through the bottom and pull it through. Okay. I'm going to keep doing that for this whole circle. color of my fabric looks a little weird in the lighting today. The yellow looks right though. Come back straight down. I can grab that thread. So I want my threads to be coming up and going down as close to the previous line as I can get it. That one's a little bit weird. That's okay. That will make it really smooth looking. And then sometimes I notice like I'll have a little gap like right there. That just means I put one of my stitches in a little crooked. So I'm going to go back up to the top in between those two previous stitches I had made, and then go back down into that gap I had there, and then I'm going to go back and finish the other side. I always like to start in the middle of a shape to give myself the right direction that I'm stitching. Some people will stitch straight stitches all the way across and then go back and fill them in too. So if that's something that will help you, obviously I think go for it. If you're not sure, give it a try. I like to do one side and then go back and do the other, but you have to figure out what works best for you too, or what strategies make sense to you. Okay, almost done with this first oval there in the middle. Okay. So I'm going to continue doing that for all of these ovals. This one on the left has a lot more. You could see a lot more of the middle of it. So I'm going to fill all of these in with yellow using a satin stitch. But for the sake of the video, I'm going to move on. I'm going to show you the petals next. Okay. So I'm going to use the same type of stitch, a satin stitch, but I'm going to change the angle of my satin stitch for each petal that come from. Okay. Because I want the petals to look like they're angling towards the middle. So I don't just want to go up and down across all of the petals. I'm going to come down here and then go like sideways there, so the petals look like they're growing towards the center of the flower. Oops. There we go. So just like before, I'm going to separate. I want 2 strands of thread, and I'm going to pull them each out first. It's a little too exuberant when I pulled that one out. And I knotted up my strand of thread. Here we go. Okay. Here comes my second thread. Okay. I'm gonna match those ends up. Straighten up my thread. I'll thread my needle here. There we go. Okay. And then I'm going to knot it at the opposite end. Alright, so I'm going to do a few petals, just so you can see what I mean about having them look like they're growing towards the center. So I'm going to start with this top one here. And I want to angle it like that. I like to turn my hoop so that I'm still stitching up and down, but if I was holding it straight, you can see the angle that the thread is going at. And then I'm going to come down right So in this case, I'm going to come right into this hole that I came up in of the center there. My other petals, since I haven't finished filling in all of the middles yet, I won't be able to do that, unfortunately. But if you do all your middles first, it'll make it a lot easier because you'll have a hole to go down into when you're putting your satin stitch through, and that makes it look a lot cleaner if you're using the same holes in the fabric. So I'm going to put that there, and then I'm going to go and do one whole side of this. Remember to come back up through the same side every time to get that nice smooth look in your satin stitch. So I'm coming up as close as I can to the thread that I put up, that I did previously, the stitch I did previously, but now I'm also following the shape of the petal, so I'm not coming up right next to the thread. Can I say that better? I'm not coming up at like an equal height to the thread, so where I'm coming up back through the fabric is lower down, but I'm still coming up as close to that previous stitch as I can. Now for this one, I'm coming back up much further down because the curve of the petal. Felt like a knot, but I guess not. Okay, and then I'm going to go back up to the top and do the other side of that petal. There we go. Still haven't seen anybody else working on this pattern. I know that some of you purchased it, and I totally get not working on it right away. I have one, two, probably 3 or 4 pieces that I got as stitch-alongs and still have not done. But when you do get to these videos and you're making this pattern, I would really love to see what you're making. I'd love to know if you're changing it up, what you're doing. Are you changing colors? Are you changing types of stitches that you're using? Love to see your ideas, or if you're not, that's great too. I'm still super interested. It's my first pattern, the first time I've ever tried something like this, so I'd love to know what you think, how it went, all of that. So then on this side of kind of this like weird little petal there, so I'm just twisting, I'm turning my hoop because I want to be able to stitch up and down still. So I'm going to angle this one like that towards the center there. So this is what I meant about not wanting to just stitch up and down for all the petals, but I want to turn my hoop and change the angles of my satin stitch so that the petals look like they're growing towards or from the center. Do they grow toward? They must grow from the center. When you are participating, you're stitching your piece. Like, I'd love to also, if you don't follow me, you can't tag me, or I don't know, you want to use a hashtag. KSSAL is the hashtag that I made up. I'd love to get more confident and do more stitch-alongs in the future. Teaching was my career, So I love the idea of being able to teach people embroidery too. Yeah, so as I get more confident in myself and my design skills and ability to create patterns and all of that, I'm definitely interested in doing more stitch-alongs. So KS for Keisha Stitches, SAL for stitch-along is the hashtag that I decided we could use for this and any potential future stitch-alongs. So when I got to this petal, you might have noticed I just turned my hoop again to keep following, or to keep having the petals going towards the center of the flower. There we go. So that's where I'm going to stop again for the video, but I guess, never mind. I want to finish this petal. I don't want to leave the petal halfway finished. I'm looking forward to getting some more of this filled in because it's reminding me of an egg right now. I know that will change once I get the rest of the flower stitched, but right now it's giving egg vibes. I accidentally skipped the space. I'm just gonna go fill that back in. Pull that through. And then one more strand should do it for this petal. There we go. So, there. I'm going to continue that for all these petals, just turning my hoop so they're following like that. So there's that so far. So, we've satin stitched the middles, we've satin stitched the petals. That part looks really nice. This part's a little bumpy up here. Satin stitch is still not my most favorite stitch, but practicing it, I'm determined because it looks so beautiful. So we're going to use satin stitch next for the stem and the leaves of the Edelweiss at the bottom here. So I'm going to get my green. If you wanted to, you could use a different green than you used for these branches, I guess, on the side. I'm using the same shade of green that I used for that. Whatever your heart desires. I need to sharpen these scissors. Okay, so again, I'm going to use 2 strands. I'm going to separate them to make it a little more smooth. Okay. Bring them back together, line up those ends there. And thread my needle. There we go. Tie my knot. Alright. Then, so in these stems down here, this stem and leaves are in front of this stem here. Okay? So you can either satin stitch this stem first and then stitch this leaf over the top of it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to stitch this stem and leaves, and then when I fill in this stem, I'm just going to stop when it gets to that leaf. I mean, either of those are fine options. For me, I find it a lot easier to follow the shape of the leaf, and if I cover it up with the satin stitch first, I just know that'll be trickier for me. So I'm going to come up right at the base, or at the, what is this? The edge of my petal there, and then I'm going to come down all the way at the bottom of my hoop. Okay, so coming right up to where that inner hoop is, And pull that straight through. Then go back to the top. My fabric's starting to get a little loose. I need to tighten that. And here it doesn't sound as drum tight as it did if you listened to the prep video. Sometimes you can just give your fabric a little tug, and that's enough to do it. And then what I'll need to do is get I use pliers to tighten this screw at the top. So I'll get some pliers after this. Tighten that screw so that the fabric stays nice and taut in there. But for now, I'm just going to finish up this step. Alright, so that was about 4 stitches for me to make that stem. Now when I do the leaf, I'm going to come through the tip again like we did for the fishbone stitch. But when I do a satin stitch leaf, I'm going to bring this all the way so that it comes under the stem in the middle of that leaf there. Like that. And then I'm going to come up and do one side of the leaf just like I did for the petals. Tuck that in there. And I'm just following the shape of the leaf so it's starting to get a little shorter on the bottom too. So I'm not going to keep tucking that thread all the way under my stem. I'm going to put my needle down right by the line to get the shape of the leaf that I want. And then I'm going to finish up the other side. This side's not quite as wide out as the other side, so I'm only going to do 3 stitches for that side there. So there's a little satin stitch leaf. If you want to do a fishbone leaf again, you certainly can. And when I drew this leaf, it looks detached from that stem there, but I'm going to want it to attach all the way down. So I'm going to bring my thread all the way to the stem. I should really redraw it in, so I'm just going to kind of eyeball it since I don't have my pen and stuff with me right now. But by making my stitches a little bit shorter each time, I should still get the right shape of the leaf there. And just a little bit on top. Oh, that's not too bad at all. Okay, so now I'm going to finish up stitching this stem. And then if you've been keeping up, you'll have a finished hoop. I'm going to try, oh boy, I'm working on several projects right now, and I've just been feeling some burnout this week. I'm trying to get myself to stick to a more strict schedule just for everything in my day, not just embroidery, to try to help me kind of come back from that. So I'm going to try my best to get this all finished up probably tomorrow, and I'll try to have a goal to post it by Wednesday so you can see the finished hoop. I'm also going to go back and add photos of the finished hoop to the pattern now that we've got one all complete. So again, if you've been following along, please tag me. I would love to see what you're making. If you have any feedback about anything, questions about something that I did not explain well, again, please reach out. As I'm planning to do more of these in the future, your feedback is really invaluable to me in what I'm planning. That could be feedback about the design, feedback about my instructions, feedback about, I don't know, video quality. I definitely would love to get something different than my hoop stand to hold my phone so that I can have my hoop in the hoop stand to take away some of the shakiness when I'm stitching. But yeah, thanks so much for joining me. I can't wait to see what you make. Bye.